Daniel stepped off the bus and looked around the town he had left behind years ago. Nothing had changed much. Same small shops, same trees lining the roads, same calm wind carrying old memories. He was here only for a short business trip. He had no plans to visit old friends, and definitely no plans to see her. But fate had other ideas as he walked past the little cafe on the corner. His eyes caught something strange. A young woman stood across the street, surrounded by 3 small boys. The boys were laughing, playing with toy cars near the sidewalk. Daniel stopped. Something inside him froze. He stared at the woman, her face partly hidden by the sunlight, and then she turned. It was her Ala, the girl who once meant everything to him. The one who had pushed him away without explanation 7 years ago. The one he tried so hard to forget, but never could. His heart skipped. But that wasn't the most shocking part. It was the 3 boys standing beside her. All of them had soft tweed and soft brown hair, just like his. All of them had dimples that appeared when they smiled, just like his. And one of them, the eldest, had those exact same eyes. His eyes. Daniel couldn't move. It felt like the world had gone silent. Was he dreaming? Was this some cruel trick his mind was playing? The smallest boy dropped his toy car and it rolled toward Daniel's feet. He bent down, picked it up, and looked up to hand it back. The boy looked at him curiously, then smiled. Daniel's hand shook as he returned the toy. That smile, that dimple. His mind raced. Could they be his children? Was it possible? Ayla noticed him then. Her body stiffened. Her face lost color. Their eyes met across the street, and for a second, the world stopped. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. She quickly turned to the boys, grabbed their hands, and began walking away. Daniel stepped forward. Ayla, he called, but she didn't stop. She kept walking. Faster now. The boys looked back at him, confused. One of them even waved. Daniel stood there, breathing hard. His chest felt heavy, like 1,000. Memories had slammed into him all at once. 7 years. 7 years without a word. And now she's here with 3 boys who looked like him. He couldn't just walk away. He had to know the truth. He had to find out if those children were his. His legs moved before his brain could stop them. He began following her from a distance, staying in the shadows. She entered a quiet neighborhood, and finally, a small blue house with a white fence. She unlocked the door and stepped inside with the boys. He waited, hiding behind a tree. His heart pounding. After a few minutes, the porch light turned off. The house went quiet. Daniel stood there in the darkness, unsure what to do next. All he knew was this. He came to town for business, but now he couldn't leave without answers. Not when 3 boys carried his smile, his hair, and his eyes. Not when the woman he once loved had clearly been hiding something so big. He whispered to himself, "Are they mine?" And deep inside, something told him this was only the beginning. The next morning, Daniel sat in the cafe across the street from Isla's house. His coffee had gone cold, untouched. He wasn't here for the coffee. He was watching, waiting. Thinking all night he couldn't sleep. The image of those 3 boys haunted him. Their faces, their eyes, their smiles, it all pointed to one thing. They were his. They had to be. But why didn't she tell him? Why did she disappear without a word? Why hide them from him? He checked his watch. It was almost 8 a.m. Then, just like yesterday, the door of the little blue house opened. Ayla stepped out, holding one boy's hand, while the other 2 ran ahead. Daniel stood up, crossed the street, and walked straight toward her. She saw him coming. Her body froze for a moment. But she didn't run this time. The boys were too busy playing to notice the tension in her eyes. "Ayla," Daniel said gently, stopping a few feet away, "I need to know the truth." She looked at him, silent. Her lips didn't move, but her eyes were full of emotion, surprise, fear, regret. He continued, "Those boys, they look like me. Are they mine?" Ayla looked down at the ground. The wind blew her hair across her face, but she didn't move to fix it. The oldest boy turned and called, "Mom, come on." She nodded at him, but her gaze stayed on the pavement when she finally looked up. Her eyes were wet, but her face was calm. "They're fine," she said softly. "They don't need anything, Daniel. That's not what I asked," he replied, his voice tightening. "I'm not here to fight you, Ayla. I just want to know the truth." She shook her head slowly. "It's too late," she whispered. "You left, remember? You were the one who walked away." Daniel's jaw clenched. "You told me to go. You pushed me away without a reason. You said you didn't want to be with me anymore." Ayla looked away again, as if the truth was too heavy for her too. "Carrie, I didn't want to ruin your future," she said. "You were going to a big city, chasing your dreams, and I didn't want to hold you back." He stared at her, hurt and angry. "So instead, you kept 3 children from me. You decided I wasn't good enough to be their father." The boys were getting restless, pulling at her hand. She bent down to pick up one of them, kissed his forehead, and turned back to Daniel. "I never said you weren't good enough," she whispered. "I just didn't know how to tell you." Without another word, she walked away. Daniel stood there, frozen. He wanted to scream, cry, grab her arm and beg her to explain everything, but all he had now was silence, and her silence said more than any words ever could. Daniel sat alone on the same park bench he used to visit as a teenager. Back then, he and Ayla would sit together here, sharing dreams, making promises. Now, he sat here watching. 3 little boys, boys who didn't know he existed. Boys who laughed and ran through the grass like everything was perfect. But Daniel didn't feel perfect. He felt invisible, like a ghost walking beside a life that could have been his. He saw them play. The middle child, Leo, was trying to climb a tree. The youngest, Noah, was laughing as he chased butterflies. And the oldest, Eli, sat by himself with a pencil and paper, drawing quietly. Just like Daniel used to do when he was young. Daniel felt something heavy in his chest. They didn't know who he was. He wasn't dad to them. He wasn't anyone. He had no name in their world as he watched them. Ayla arrived with a small picnic bag. She spread a blanket and called the boys to sit. Daniel stayed hidden behind a tree, close enough to see, far enough not to be seen. Eli suddenly looked up, his eyes scanning the trees. For a moment, their eyes met. Daniel's breath caught. Eli was staring at him, not with fear, not with confusion, but with curiosity, as if a part of him already knew. Ayla turned to look, but Daniel stepped back, hiding again. His heart pounded. He didn't want to scare them. He just wanted to be close, to see what he missed all these years. Later that evening, Daniel visited his mother's house. She hadn't seen him in months. He sat down at the kitchen table, looking more tired than she'd ever seen him. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, touching his arm. "I think I have kids," he whispered. His mother's hand froze. He told her everything about Ayla, the boys, their faces, their eyes, everything. His mother didn't look surprised. She stood up and walked to the old drawer where she kept photo albums. She pulled out a dusty book and opened it, showing Daniel a picture of him at age 7. He looked at it, stunned. The boy in the picture looked exactly like Eli. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Go to them," she said. "They deserve to know the truth, and you deserve to. Be more than a shadow." Daniel nodded, but his voice trembled. "What if they don't want me? What if she shuts me out again?" His mother smiled softly. "Even a tree knows its roots." "Daniel," she said, "they may not know your name yet, but something in them already feels your presence." He left that night with a decision in his heart. He would no longer watch. From a distance, he may not have a name in their lives yet, But he was their father, and it was time the boys found out. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft orange and gold. Daniel stood near the old community library, unsure why he was there. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe something deeper. But he had a strange feeling, like something was about to change. And he was right. Footsteps approached from behind, slow and small. Daniel turned, surprised. There stood Eli, the oldest boy, hands in his pockets, staring up at him for a moment. Neither of them spoke. Then Eli said quietly, "You've been following us?" Daniel's heart jumped. I didn't mean to scare anyone," he replied gently. I needed to see you. That's all." Eli nodded. "Not angry, just curious." "I know you're not bad," he said. "I saw Mom crying last night after she saw you." Daniel didn't know what to say. He knelt down, trying to meet Eli's eyes at his level. "You're very smart," he said with a smile. Eli looked away, hesitating, then asked, "Are you my uncle or something?" Daniel felt a lump in his throat. "No," he whispered, voice shaking. "I think I'm something else, something more." Eli blinked, his small voice serious. "Then who are you?" That question hit Daniel like a wave. He had no right to answer, not yet. Not without Ayla. So instead, he said softly, "I'm someone who cares about you very much." Eli stepped closer, pulling something from his jacket. A folded photo. Daniel took it and opened it slowly. It was a picture of him and Ayla from years ago. She was smiling at him, and he had his arm around her shoulders. "I found this in Mom's drawer," Eli said. "She hides it. But sometimes she takes it out and looks at it when she thinks we're asleep." Daniel looked at the photo, his fingers shaking. "She loved you," Eli said softly. "Did you love her too?" Daniel looked into the boy's eyes. "More than anything," he replied, voice cracking. Eli nodded like he already knew. Then came the words that Daniel never expected to hear. "Are you my dad?" Daniel froze, breath caught in his chest. He didn't know how to lie, and he couldn't tell the full truth. So he placed a hand on Eli's shoulder and said, "I hope so." Eli's eyes filled with emotion. But he stayed strong. "You should come talk to Mom again," he said, "even if she's mad." "She's not mad at you. She's scared." Daniel watched as the boy turned and walked away toward the house. He didn't call out, didn't follow. He just stood there, heart full and broken at the same time. He had been a stranger in their lives. But now, one of them had looked into his eyes and asked the one thing he had no answer for. "Are you my dad?" And in that moment, Daniel knew he couldn't stay a shadow any longer. It was a rainy evening when Ayla's world turned upside down. Thunder rolled in the distance as she rushed through the hospital hallway. Her youngest son, Noah, was lying on a stretcher, pale and barely breathing. Doctors surrounded him, shouting medical terms she didn't understand. All she could see was her baby's tiny hand hanging off the edge, cold and limp. "Noah!" She cried, running to his side. A nurse gently stopped her. "We're trying everything." "Mama, please wait outside." Ayla stood frozen, her body shaking, her mind numb. The doctor came out moments later. "Face serious. We need blood urgently," he said. "His type is rare, and none of yours match." Ayla's lips trembled. "What if we can't find a donor?" she asked in a whisper. "There is one possible solution," the doctor said. "His biological father. If he's available." That one sentence hit Ayla harder than the thunder outside. She had no choice, no time for fear. She pulled out her phone, her hands trembling, and called the number she promised herself she'd never dial again. Daniel answered on the first ring. "Hello." Ayla couldn't speak at first. Tears poured down her cheeks. "It's Noah," she said finally, voice breaking. "He's in the hospital. They need your blood. Please. Come now." She didn't wait for a reply. She just ended the call and broke down in the waiting room minutes later. Daniel rushed through the hospital doors, soaking wet, eyes wild. He looked around until he saw her. "Where is he?" he asked, out of breath. "They're waiting for you," she said, pointing to the room. Daniel didn't hesitate. He gave blood immediately, sitting quietly as the nurse inserted the needle. He didn't ask questions, didn't complain. He just stared at the wall, his mind filled with memories of a life that could have been. A life where he knew his son long before this moment. After the transfusion, the doctors gave a small nod. "He's stable for now," they said. "Your donation saved him." Daniel stood at the window, watching the rain fall on the parking lot below. Ayla stepped beside him, silent at first. Then, with a shaky voice, she said, "You saved his life." He didn't turn to her, just nodded slowly. "I should have been there to save him from the beginning." Ayla wiped her tears. "I was scared," she whispered. "I thought you'd hate me for keeping them from you." "I don't hate you," Daniel replied, his voice soft and tired. "I just want to be their father, Ayla, not a visitor." She finally looked at him, and in that one moment, her walls began to fall. Her heart, once full of fear, now cracked open with regret and longing. "I never stopped loving you," she said, voice barely above a breath. Daniel turned to her, his eyes full of the same truth. "Neither did I," he replied. And as their fingers gently touched, they both knew the truth had broken everything. But maybe, just maybe, it could also fix it. The next weekend came quietly, but everything felt different. Ayla had made a choice, a hard, brave choice. She was finally ready to stop hiding, ready to let the truth into the light, and most of all, ready to let her children meet the man who had given them life. The boys thought they were just going to the park. They ran ahead, full of energy, tossing a ball back and forth. Eli stayed close to his mother, though. He could sense something important was happening. He always did. They reached a quiet corner of the park, near a bench under a tall tree. Daniel was already there, waiting, his hands nervously gripped a small box, and his heart thudded in his chest like a drum. He hadn't slept well, but he didn't care. Today mattered more than anything else. When the boys spotted him, they slowed down. They remembered seeing him before. The man with kind eyes who always watched from afar. The man Eli had spoken to once, but never told his brothers about. Ayla walked to Daniel, her voice calm but soft. "They've been asking questions," she said. "It's time they got answers." Daniel nodded slowly. He took a deep breath and walked toward the three boys. He knelt down to their level and smiled nervously. "Hey there," he said gently. "I know this might be a little strange, but I'd really like to talk to you guys." The youngest, Noah, peeked from behind Ayla's leg. Leo stood beside him, curious but quiet. Only Eli stepped forward, his voice steady. "You're the man from the photo," he said, "right?" Daniel's heart ached and warmed at the same time. "Yes," he replied. "That photo was from a time when your mom and I were very close." Ayla stepped forward and placed a hand on each child's shoulder. "Boys," she said slowly, "this is Daniel. He's your father." The words floated in the air for a moment, long, heavy, silent. The boys stared at her, then at Daniel. No one moved. Then Noah tilted his head. "Really? Like our real dad?" Daniel knelt closer and opened the small box he had brought. Inside were tiny gifts, things each boy loved. A sketchbook for Eli, a soccer ball for Leo, and a dinosaur figure for Noah. "I've missed so many moments," he said, his voice cracking, "but I want to be here now. If you'll let me." Leo looked at the soccer ball, his fingers brushing it with wonder. Noah hugged his dinosaur tightly, and Eli, without a word, walked up and wrapped his arms around Daniel's neck. "I already knew," he whispered. "I just needed you to say it." Daniel hugged him back, tears rolling down his cheeks. Allah stood nearby, her eyes full of emotion. For the first time in years, the truth was no longer hidden. It was right here, living, breathing, hugging him back. And for the first time ever, Daniel was no longer a shadow. He was their father. 3 weeks had passed since the boys met Daniel. Everything had changed, and yet, somehow, everything felt natural, like the missing pieces of a quiet puzzle had finally clicked into place. Daniel was no longer watching from a distance. He was now inside their world, where he always belonged, every Saturday. He picked up the boys for a day out. They explored toy stores, visited the zoo, and played soccer in the field behind the school. He brought them snacks, listened to their stories, and laughed like he hadn't in years. Even Noah, once shy, had started calling him Dad without hesitation, and Leo, who barely spoke to strangers before, now ran to hug Daniel every time he arrived. But it was Eli who made the biggest change. He started drawing again, not monsters or dark skies. Like before, now he drew families, holding hands under the sun. Daniel kept every sketch, taping them to his apartment wall like treasure. Ayla watched from the side, quiet and thoughtful. She had expected jealousy or pain, but all she felt was peace. She had been strong for too long. Now, finally, she could let herself rest. Just a little. One Sunday afternoon, Daniel invited them all to the hilltop where the city view stretched wide. He had packed a picnic and even brought kites for the boys. They ate together under the soft sky, laughter filling the breeze after the meal. While the boys chased the wind, Daniel turned to Ayla. "I know we can't go back to the past," he said, "but I'd like to build something new." Ayla looked at him, her eyes soft but unsure. "I don't want the boys to be confused," she whispered. "They've already been through enough." Daniel reached into his bag and pulled out something small, a simple ring tied to a string. "Then let's give them something clear," he said, smiling. "I'm not asking for perfection, Kayla. I'm asking for a chance to grow this together." Tears welled in her eyes. "You still love me after everything, Kayla?" she asked, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded. "I never stopped," he said. "I just forgot how to say it." Behind them, the boys were yelling, "Mom, Dad, come fly the kite with us." That word Dad, it no longer shocked him. It felt real now, honest, earned. Ayla took his hand, finally letting herself lean on him, and together they walked toward the kids, all 5 of them running. Through the open field, laughter trailing behind them like music. They had lost time, made mistakes, lived in silence, but none of that mattered now, because love had returned, not with grand speeches, but with small truths, steady steps, and one very quiet question answered, yes. They were a family. Not perfect, not planned, but real. A family rewritten by time.